Hey, welcome back everybody. Thought I'd get you caught up to speed on what's been going on or not going on so far on the console radio slash bar project. I ordered a bunch of parts after doing a lot of thinking about how I wanted it to work. And so I thought I'd at least, I haven't started making it yet, but I'll show you what the plan is. And then as I start getting into actually putting it together, I'll show you the progress along the way. Hang on. Okay, there's the again, the carcass. Nothing's really been done to it other than my son was here about a week or so ago, a couple weeks ago. I had to do some business travel, so anyways, it's been a little bit since I worked on it, but we were doing some kind of prototyping of how I wanted the bar shelf to raise up and down, and kind of came up with a plan. So in the meantime, I ordered some parts, and so let me kind of show you what the current thinking is. So I've got a few just poplar boards over there that I'm going to be using for different things, part of the shelf, and then also some support pieces that I'll need inside the cabinet as I get things put together. But one thing we think we're going to do, so I bought a bunch of these drawer slides, 4 of them, and along with the brackets down here that are meant to go around the back of a drawer on the slides. But what I think I'm going to do, I'm going to use those first off to help. I'm going to put 2 on each side. So I'll run one at 2 here, and here, and one on 2 on this end as well. And the idea is I'll put the shelf on top of those things, and that will help keep everything in alignment as they're going up and down. I tried to toy some things with my son, basically trying to figure out, can I just hang the shelf off of hooks and the pulleys, and maybe put something in each corner just to kind of keep the shelf stabilized. And I think that was possible, but we were running into all sorts of problems trying to get the shelf to smoothly go up and down. So kind of what the thought was let's just use drawer glides or slides. We'll put 2 on each side, and that will help keep everything in alignment, give it some support as well. And so what I'm going to try to do is, instead of putting these, what would normally be on the back of a drawer, I think what I'm going to do is actually install these. So this is actually what would be in the inside of your cabinet. And so these would normally go back here, something like this. Like that. Sorry. We go like that on the back of the cabinet. But what I think I'm going to do is, I think this part is going to be installed on the bottom, on this edge. And what I'm going to try to do is, I bought some hardware, some just nuts and bolts. What I'm going to try to do is take advantage of these. Oh, hard to do that while looking through the camera. So I'm going to try to take advantage of these pre-existing holes here, and the slot, we'll go this way, on this bracket, and attach this bracket to the slide, and that this would end up being actually some support underneath the shelf. Does that make sense? So let's see if I can do this with one hand without breaking anything. So the idea would be, sorry. So this is going to get mounted here, although it'll be spaced out a little ways from the edge of the cabinet because I have to get around this little lip on the top. But the idea is it would be mounted here, and then this is not working very well in the video, but this would be mounted like so, and then this shelf will be attached on top of that. So these will be sitting underneath the shelf, if that makes sense. So we'll have 2 of those on that side, 2 on the other side. That's the plan. We will see if I can make it all kind of come to fruition in that way. So I guess you'll see that in this video later on, see if it works. I bought, showed earlier, I have some of these little pulleys that I'm going to use basically just to guide the rope. These will be mounted over here. I'll have to put another piece of wood here. I'm going to mount them about here. There'll be this paracord I'm going to use to run from the lid you remember in the last video, if you saw it, the lid, I want this to be able to come up. I want, when you raise the lid up and down, I want that to mechanically pull up and let down the shelf. Okay, so I bought these hinges. These are torsion hinges. I bought them from Rockler. And these are the stronger, not sure if they're the strongest, but they're like 60 inch-pound versions, which is way more than I would need if I was just using, wanting that to help keep the lid up, from slamming. But because I'm going to be hanging the bar, basically shelf with things on it, off of the lid, I wanted to make sure I had enough resistance from the hinges to be able to keep the thing from slamming shut. And I'm not for sure it will work once I get things loaded. So again, it's going to be a little bit of a trial and error process, but we'll see how it goes. So I've got these hinges. I bought these. These are for like D-rings for mounting picture frames and mirrors. So I bought those. I plan to hang those on the back of the, it'd be a lot easier for you to envision this if I had all my parts kind of in one place, but here's the lid. Again, so thinking mounting this up there, so the rope will be tied, or the paracord will be tied stationary to this end, and then we'll come off of there and around those pulleys I was showing you before going down onto the shelf. Okay, so that's all the parts that I bought. So I kind of have, I think hardware-wise, I have everything. I think, well, there could be one other item I'll show you if I end up using it. I might have to buy some chain. We'll kind of see. But anyways, those are all the parts I bought and the wood. Next step is really to kind of put the creative part into motion and start putting things together and see how it's going to work. So stay tuned, and I'll catch you up to speed when I get to that point to show you some progress. All right, let me catch you up to speed a little bit on what I've been doing. So again, I'm not like showing you all the steps along the way, but I'll just kind of fill you in as we go. So the first thing I did is I just kind of roughly, cut some boards to fit on the bottom there as a little shelf. And I need that because right on top of that, I need to actually, in that corner, I'll have to set the drawer slides on that to give it something stable to fasten to at the bottom. Speaking of the drawer slides, I actually made a mistake when I ordered them. It turns out the ones I got were too long. I bought 22-inch slides, and now I can't remember exactly what this measurement is. I think it's like almost 34 to the top, but because the way I'm going to have this pulley sitting down, it's only going to be like 32-ish down here. And I wasn't thinking about the fact that the problem is not really so much how far they can go, up out of the case. I need them to be able to go down far enough so that a wine bottle will sit down in there when the top is closed. So that was a mistake. So now I've got a couple of extra 22-inch drawer glides that I'm going to have on hand for a project down the road. I didn't feel like really returning them. I ordered them on Amazon, but anyways, so now I've got a couple of other 16-inchers ordered, and I think that will work. Keep my fingers crossed so I don't have another set of unusable drawer slides. So besides the shelves at the bottom, and again, I'm not really finishing anything at the moment. I'm just kind of dry fitting everything until I make sure it's going to be set up the way I want it. I've mounted these pieces underneath the lip. This one is almost just cosmetic. I don't necessarily need that. Cosmetic in the sense that, as I mentioned, this one, because the pulley has thickness to it, because this is roughly 3/4 of an inch, just a little bit under thick, I need to hold it down underneath the surface so the lid can shut all the way. So So the drawer, the shelf as it rises is going to come up here, and depending on, well, because I have to have the something that mounts to it coming up all the way under here, I think my shelf is actually going to stop flush with the bottom of this. So just to make it symmetrical on both sides, I've got the same thing over here, and it'll help give it a positive stop as it comes up. So those they look like they're just straight boards, but I'm not sure if I can get you down here to see. I had to, yeah, you can see I had to notch them out and then make a curve there in the corner. Those notches, there's little like pyramid here, like these little supports that were in there from all the extra stuff that was in here when it was a phonograph and a radio. So anyways, I didn't want to take those out because I've taken some of them out, and I just, it's kind of like a curved case, and I really don't know. Everything seems solid, but I'm afraid if I keep pulling these things out of here, things are going to start falling apart. So anyway, so I decided to leave them and just notch around those supports on both sides, and then swing around here, do the same thing over here. That rectangular piece there is where the old lid, the lid stay used to be. And so you can see the same kind of approach I did over here. So anyways, and then I ended up to fasten them in. Sorry for the shaky camera there. I just went ahead and countersunk some screws on each edge. See there? Which is okay because the original top had a trim piece that was here and was leather, and it kind of came up and just overrode the edge a little bit. I'm actually going to put a strip of felt along here, and it should cover up, well, it will, I'll just make sure it does. It'll cover up these screw holes on the edges. Okay, so that's the main thing there. The clamps are holding on little pieces I'm using to cover up the old hinge locations, because those torsion hinges, as I showed you earlier, they need to sit on top. They say you can mount them. They're almost the right thickness to have put them where these were. I would have to widen them out a little bit, but when you widen them, the way they were designed, it's a little hard to see if I can get them out of the bag and show you. Well, I've got them closed up a little bit now, but this part is right here is the piece that sits over the lip, and you can see it's narrower than the top, and so that piece would have set fine inside this old hinge piece, but the top is wider, which seems okay at first, because that gets mounted to the lid. But again, it's hard to do this. I can't do this with one hand because this is, like I said, it's like a 60 pound torque required to pull that. But when you go to fold the lid down, the top would run into the edge right here of the frame. So I decided just to go ahead and I'm going to fill those up, and I'll just mount these on top like I want to, wherever I want to. And so actually I just cut these pieces actually out of some of this old material that I had stripped out of the stereo to begin with. They're actually sitting over here. So I just cut them to length and use my bandsaw to kind of trim them down to the right thickness, and I've got them glued up, and once they're dry I'll sand them down so they're flush with the rest of the cabinet. So that's that. The other thing that I've done is I took advantage, it's really nice today, it's about, I don't even know what it's officially, 65, 70 degrees outside, so I decided, kind of see through here, this is a good day to open up we've got those, I always forget the actual name. I call them bomb doors. So we got our doors opened up to come down here to the basement just to get some good ventilation. I actually went outside and I took the lid and I took off all the old finish. It's not really stripped in the sense that it didn't take off the stain. I used that Formbees. I'd show you exactly what it is, but I threw the can out already. It's like, I think it's furniture Restorer, I think might be the name of it, but it says it doesn't strip the finish, tries to leave the patina of the wood. And it did a pretty good job. It took me quite a bit of it. Actually, I used a whole can on the top and the top and the other side, the underside of the lid. But it's not, it doesn't have a top coat on it or anything, but you can see it turned out pretty well. There were a lot of scratches and things, and it did leave, so I just don't want to sand it a lot. Not sure if you can see it. You can see some of them. There's some little scratches and things that were here. It was really obvious. Here's, some up through here. It was really obvious when the top coat was still there because it just scratched, down through it. But I think it's going to look pretty good. I'm not going to do, I just don't want to do too much heavy sanding on this. Try to keep it old looking. But I think it looks pretty good at the moment. One thing I was a little bit hesitant about was, a little hard to see here. Let's see if I can zoom in. Yeah. Firestone, and I assumed this was maybe painted on. I'm not really sure. I was a little hesitant to go over top of that with that finishing, refinishing stuff, but it left it alone. So I'm kind of happy that it's still there. One little piece of the old history of it. So anyways, it's just sitting here right now waiting to dry. I probably might do a little bit of light sanding on it just to make sure everything's nice and smooth before I do finishing on top of it. But that'll be the last step that I do, I think, after I get everything dry fitted. So anyways, just wanted to catch you up. And stay tuned, and we'll fill you in again as we get to the next steps. Okay, so let's fast forward one day, and let me show you what I'm up to now. So hopefully this will start making a little more sense to you as I start assembling things a little bit again. And I'm just like test fitting, so this is not final assembly, but now I've got these hinges in position and attached here. I showed you these side supports here a little while ago on either side. And so let me get one of these pulleys. So maybe you can start imagining. So the plan is I'm going to attach paracord. Sorry for the finger in the way of the video, but I'm going to attach from this side. There's going to be a cord that goes up, and I'm going to attach it to the lid over here. It's going to run down over the pulley through this piece and then down to the shelf that's going to sit here below. Okay, and I'm going to have that on both sides. So the thing that's missing in this equation right now are the drawer slides that I've received now. And I'll show you how that's going to work, at least how I plan it to work. Let me show you first off, though, one of my concerns. I mentioned these hinges are like 60 inch-pound torque rated hinges. This may be a little hard to show. I'm trying to do this with one hand. Let me see if I can keep my fingers out of the way and do this. But one thing that I'm a little concerned with, first off, it stays up like no problem. I have to kind of force it down, which that part's actually okay, because my whole thing was I didn't want, once I've got that shelf in there and I've got wine bottles or whatever else on there, I don't want the lid to slam shut. Right, so I think so far so good. My only concern is, well, first off, once it is loaded, will it still be that way? And I think that's okay. I think it'll help me lower it. I don't think it's going to slam based on just what I can tell right now. My concern is actually once the shelf is loaded, lifting the lid without lifting the cabinet off the ground, because it's a little stiff. If I just try to lift it, it'll lift, but I don't know if you can tell, I'm lifting it off the ground at the moment. So once it's weighted heavier, it'll be interesting to see how all the physics works out, because it will be harder for me to lift the lid, although once it gets past a certain point, May not help right away, but there's a little bit of pulley action there, so it'll help a little bit with that. But the weight of it all will still be acting in a downward direction. So I'm hoping, even though the top may be a little difficult, a little bit stiff to open, I'm hoping that the added weight of whatever I've got on that shelf is going to help keep the cabinet down. Full disclosure, I'm an engineer. I am not a mechanical engineer. Physics and things is not my strong suit. So I haven't run the math. That's what it boils down to. But I'm putting this together. We're just going to kind of see how it works. If it ends up being too hard to lift, I may have to go back and replace these hinges with a little bit lighter, less torque required hinges. As I said, these are 60 inch pounds. I think the next step down Rockler had was 40. So if this is too difficult, then I may have to go that route. But it'll be a trade-off between, how fast I want that lid to come down when I want it to versus how difficult it is to lift. So we're just going to have to see how it goes. Worst case scenario, I replace those hinges. So that's what's happening here. Hopefully you can kind of see at least what I'm planning on, how that's going to work. Now what I'm working on, these are the new drawer slides that I've got. These are 16 inches. And the one thing I've done, so they come with all these holes in there, right, for mounting to either the cabinet or to the drawer. But what I've done, so this is the bracket that usually is intended to go around on the end and to the back of the drawer. What I'm going to use them for is to actually mount them here on each one of those, and I'm going to set the shelf on top going this way. Okay, I'm going to have two on each end just to make things more stable. So what I've done, because this has a nice slot in it, but I've kind of played around with the sizing, or how close this fits to the top of this slide compared to the amount of travel that I want it to have once it's installed here on the side of the cabinet. So what I decided to do was I'm going to mount this slot. So the top of this slot is actually in the second hole here. And when I did that, I decided, just to make things more stable, to drill another hole that was not there on this section, right? So I'll have a screw here or a bolt here and one up there, and that should lock it into place so it can't go up and down. And that gives me this little bit of overlap here on the top of this, but I'll just measure the shelf carefully so it actually just runs up against that. Okay, so that's the plan. So I think that's going to work. I'm going to put these things together next, and then I will next what I have to do to get these mounted is, because of where I have this pulley where it's going to come out, even if I put it all the way against the edge, there's a little bit of clearance of a gap between the edge of the case and where that pulley is, which is where the line, the cord is going to come down from. So I need to build this out a little bit. So my plan is to put just a piece of wood down here. I might have to space it out a little bit. I'll kind of see how it works with the alignment with the pulley. But I'm going to mount a piece of wood on this side and as well as on the other side. And then I will mount the slides to it. Okay. So the next thing you see, hopefully, will be the execution of that particular design effort. So stay tuned. Okay, we're back at it. It's been 3+ weeks since I've actually worked on this. There's been a lot going on. I've actually was traveling for work again, and haven't had time to do much with it. And we also just about 2 weeks ago got a new puppy in the house, so I have had like zero time to be able to come down and work in the shop. So I just got back down here for a little while earlier today and started working on those on the shelf brackets. So let me turn you around here and show you, how that is going to work out. All right, here we go. Okay, so I've got, hopefully this is going to make more sense now too that I've been talking about this. You can see it. So I've got each of these slides, I'll turn it this way, make it a little easier to see. So I've got each one of these now mounted to a piece of 3/4 pine material that I just had sitting around. The holes are just from an old project I had worked on a while back. So anyway, it's just kind of repurposing a board that I have. So I've got each of them mounted, and you can see the brackets that I've got bolted onto the top now. Okay, and so let me see if I could do this again. I'm operating with one hand here. So you can see each one of these can slide up and down. I've got it mounted so it's exactly flush with the edge of this board. And I've got 2 sets of these, or a set of, how do you want to count this? So there's 1, 2, so a set that each has 2 slides on it. And so just to, hopefully this will make even more sense now that I actually have this together. You can see what I'm planning to do. Struggling again with one hand. Okay, so this board, I'm going to mount this. I plan to just use some construction adhesive behind here because this piece right here is very thin, so I really can't screw into it directly, which is another reason why I needed this to be able to mount the brackets to. So I'm going to mount one of these on this side. I'll have another one on the opposite side over here, and then the shelf is going to sit on top of these brackets, right? And so again, when I have my cord coming down over that pulley, the cord will come down through the top of the shelf, and then these will glide up and down. Okay, so hopefully now that you've seen that, maybe it will make more sense than me just trying to describe it a little bit. So one thing I mentioned a little while ago was I was talking about having to be real particular about trying to figure out where this was going to be mounted versus where, like, how much I had to build this out to make sure things were lined up. And I started thinking about that a little more, and that really doesn't matter at all. I can mount this pretty much wherever I want to, left to right, because the shelf will be sitting here, and that just gives me a continuous surface that I can put the hole in that shelf wherever I need to. So wherever it comes out of here, it'll be fine. I'll just be able to put a hole right in the shelf and it'll line up perfectly. So the next step is I'm going to go ahead and drill a hole here that I can put a cord in. I'm going to mount each of these, one to each side. I may have to go ahead. I haven't attached those boards in the bottom yet. I was waiting. I was going to paint them black. So I may paint that board and may paint the other boards black, because once I mount this thing to the side, I won't be able to get that shelf back out again at the end. So either I'm going to go ahead and attach them, and then I'll paint everything at once at the end, which is maybe what I do. Or I'll take that bottom shelf out and paint it first and then attach everything. So we'll just kind of see. But so that's next. So once I decide which order I'm going to do those things in, I'll show you how that worked out. And maybe, I think by the next time you see it, hopefully I'll have the shelf mounted on there so you can start seeing that come together as well. All right, next steps. So I've got the drawer slides now attached to either side of the cabinet. I just used some paneling construction adhesive to attach them to the sides. You can see kind of oozing out the top there a little bit. But I've got them mounted where I want them. The middle, kind of marked the midpoint on each of those so I could put it in the right spot, but I lined that up with basically where this hole is, that where the paracord is going to come over top of that and down, and that lines up with the middle of this board. Did that and same on both sides. So now I've just measured between the top of this bracket and the top of bracket over here, and that's right at about 31 inches. So that's the length of my my shelf. And I was trying to figure out, because I'm not 100% sure still where I want it to, how I want to line it up on the top. If I want to completely center it, you know, so there's equal space between the front and the back rails, which is kind of the way I'm leaning, or if I want to put it most of the way to the back or most of the way to the forward. I can't go all the way to the front because you see this this piece right here. It sticks out beyond the front of this rail by roughly ½ an inch, I think, when I've measured it. So I would have to hold it back from the front anyway, so I'm thinking I'm just going to center it in the opening. So the only caveat there is where I marked, I was just mentioning the center of the rails down here is actually aligned with this hole, which is a little bit it's a little bit forward of the center. So this is actually the center line of the cabinet. So but I think that's okay, because you know, I think with the shelf mounted on both of those rails on either side, I don't think it matters that much if I've got where the hole comes in, where the cord comes down. I don't think it's going to matter if it's just, you know, like an inch or whatever off center. I think it'll pull it up fine without having any issues. At least that's my thinking, because the string will go straight down no matter what, so it'll be pulling vertically regardless of where it is on that shelf. So I think it's still going to be okay. And I think it'll look better, more than likely, if I just center the shelf up here in the opening. So I think that's what I'm going to do. The next question was, how am I going to attach it? So obviously there's holes in the top of these brackets I'm going to use to attach the shelf to. I was trying to figure out the best way to do it. I thought, well, I could go ahead and lay the shelf in down here and attach everything, but then probably an easier thing that I'm going to do, and to make sure that I'm centered instead of having to go back and forth and move the shelf back and forth, is I'm going to go ahead and, once I cut the shelf piece, I'm just going to go ahead and clamp it in place. On the top, I'll clamp it to the underside of these rails on each side, and that will allow me to center it the way I want to. And then I'll just push one rail up at a time to the bottom, and I'll be able to mark the holes on the bottom of the shelf, and I'll do that for each of the 4 brackets. So I think that's going to work pretty well. The other thing that I had to do a little bit ago, sorry I keep getting my fingers in the way, is I had to find out where, so I've got the pulley here, and the rope's going to go through here, all right, the paracord, and I needed to figure out where I'm going to mount a hook or whatever other attachment method to the top, right? So because I was trying to figure out, you know, there's a gap here, there's height differences, and including this gap here, so it wasn't going to be a simple measurement between like here and here to match up with from there to there. So what I did was I'm going to actually use another one of these pulleys. That'll be how I mount it to the top. So it'll be mounted up here, and then the string or the paracord will just tie off to that. So what I did is I actually rigged up kind of I didn't show this obviously, but I basically took one of these. I need this to line up. It has to come down pretty much in line with that hole, because if it doesn't, when I close the lid, if it's too far this way, once I get the lid closed most of the way, it's actually going to stop lowering the shelf, right? So it's going to start drawing it away from the pulley instead of directly in line here. So I need to have this, if it's going to be, when this is mounted at the top, I wanted it to come down basically over top of that hole, at least as close as possible. So what I did, I kind of was able to balance one of these in there. I'm not going to be able to do it now, watch, but to be able to mark the holes, I rolled up a little piece of tape and I stuck it here. I'll see if I can recreate it. So I just stuck this tape on the bottom like that, and once the tape was on there, I put this where I wanted it, lined it up, and then I closed the lid down. Then tape stuck to my finger. And then the tape, with the pulley, just stuck to the underside of the lid, and then I put the lid back up, and this thing was stuck to the lid right where it needs to be. So, and then I was able to mark the holes, and so you can see, maybe, yeah, so I've marked the 2 hole locations like this, and the same thing on the other side. Where are they? There they are. So that allowed me to mark the pulleys for the attachment on the top where I want them, and so that's going to be ready to go when I'm ready to attach the rope. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is actually cut the shelf and get it mounted. Like I said, I'm going to clamp it underneath the rails on each side here. Well, I'm not sure what happened there. I had a little bit of a memory issue or something on my cell phone, so I've deleted some videos off of it. So hopefully we'll be able to continue with the video. So let me show you where we're at now. All right, this is what I was trying to describe earlier. So I've got the shelf cut to the width, and this is how it'll end up. The plan will be that it's going to sit just like that underneath those rails when it's raised. I've got it clamped in place now, so now what I'm going to do next is I've got to get under here, and I will raise, actually I might flip this upside down. It probably will make it much easier. Yeah, I'm going to flip the thing upside down, and then I'll put the shelf on here. I'll be able to mark the holes and actually just attach it right to the brackets that way. That way I don't have to try to figure out how I want to keep those things up and against the bottom of the shelf. It just can make life a lot easier. So that's what we're going to do here next, and then I'll show you what happens after that. Okay, so much for putting it on its top. I wasn't even thinking when I was talking about doing that, because I've got the clamps all sticking out there, so I couldn't put it upside down. But I put it on its front, and you can see I went ahead and attached the end of the drawer slides or drawer glides to the bottom of the shelf on both sides. So it's ready to go as far as being attached. I also, you can see here, I went ahead and drilled a hole through. Let me kind of move you around. Through here, because while it's in position, I just went ahead and stuck the drill bit right back through that hole there, so everything's perfectly aligned. I've got one there and one on that side. Let's see, daylight through there. Yep. So it's all ready to go. I need to thread the rope through there. I have not yet mounted. I need to come over here and mount the other pulley on the top here before I could do that. But anyways, wanted to back up and kind of show you where it was at, where we were at, and I think what I might have to do is flip it around on its back now so I can access the lid easier and put those other pulleys on there. So I think that's next. Stay tuned. Okay, well, I was hoping I was going to get this entire project into the same video before I posted it, but things are taking way too long, so I think instead of drawing it out until I'm completely finished, I'm going to go ahead and kind of show you where I'm at now, and which is pretty much what I'll call maybe a final mock-up. stage, and then once I get to doing some more of the final finishing, I will post another video to show the final project, or the final product. So let me show you where we're at for now, and then we'll close this one out. Well, so there it is. So I've got, this is my interesting liquor collection here. This is just, I wanted to put some weight on this shelf to kind of see how things were going to work. Let me show you. So I guess I had things kind of set up, but did not have the rope on here. So I did mount these other from the side. You can kind of see this pulley here on the top. And again, it's not really doing anything as far as a pulley is concerned, but just made kind of a nice, handy connector, I guess, as far as that goes, because it matches the pulley down here. So, and I just have, again, this is not finished. This is just kind of rigging it up so I can kind of see how things are working and decide if I need to make any changes. So I'll try to make a little bit nicer of a knot or something here on that side. And like I said, I just had some weights on here just so I could see how things were going to work. So let me show you. It's working okay. It's not perfect, and so I may have to tweak some things a little bit. Because all I did, so on the bottom, well, the last video I showed you when it was on the side, when I had the shelf all the way, when I had this all the way flush with the underside of this piece here, I put the knot on the bottom of that rope, right up against the shelf. And you'll see, let me just kind of show you. I'll try to operate this. Again, I should put this phone on a little bit of a longer holder so I can do these things easier with one hand. But you can see how it is working as I'm lowering the shelf, lowering the lid. It's lowering this, and it's not, I am controlling it a little bit. I don't want to just let it go with my hand, but I'm not having to supply a whole lot of force here. So it is going down relatively easily with those hinges that I've got. And then it doesn't go smoothly at that last little bit, but it is, I'm not sure if you can see from down here or not. There's a little bit of a gap here, but there's no, like, the wine bottle's not touching the top, so it's getting down far enough. So that's good. But if you look down here, I'm not sure if you can tell, but this is a little bit uneven. Like, this side is not down as far as the other one. And what I'm noticing is I've got to supply a little bit of extra force. I guess I did it there at the end to get the shelf to bottom out. So I'm not 100% sure what's going on. Oh, I just realized that I can tell you how long it's been since I've been down here. I didn't really tie a knot on the bottom of this yet. I literally I got vice grips. I forgot about that. I have vice grips hanging on the bottom of each of these just so I could, again, kind of play with the tension on those ropes. But so it's working. It's going down okay. And when I go to raise it, kind of as expected, it's a little bit heavy to lift when I've got things loaded on it. So I'm going to step down here just to hold it there in position. So I might need to put some sort of another, I don't know, like a lift assist, like a shock or something on there. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do. But it does come up. It's a little hard to show. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit too close to it. But it comes up all the way. But what I'm noticing is, I'm not sure if you can tell, when I'm pushing tension against the lid, it does come up all the way. But when I let go of the lid, so if I let go, it's coming down a little bit, so it's settling about an inch below. It's not a huge big deal, but I'm not sure. If we look back down here, oh, sorry for the noise. Get my head under here. So the rope is still, I've got full tension on that. So I'm not sure what exactly is going on there. It may just be the weight is just causing the shelf to kind of come down a little bit from where I want it. So anyway, so I've got some tweaking I think I need to do as far as the length of the cord, I think in particular. The other thing that I realized, and I should have known, but where I positioned this pulley here, I was hoping I would get at least a little bit of some mechanical advantage of having that pulley there, but you can see where I've got it positioned, and it's kind of where I have to have it positioned based on the geometry of the where the lid sits relative to the to where the shelf has got to be lifted up and down. But I'm really it's barely touching like here. So for the most part, there really is I'm not getting any, it's just acting like a guide. I'm not getting any real mechanical advantage on lifting the shelf by that pulley. So in order to do that, I would have to have this thing way over here so that the rope would come down and go around the rope or around the pulley a little bit more. With a little more angle, to it to be able to get the mechanical advantage out of it. But if I put it way out here, in order for this to operate the way it's working right now, I would have to then attach this like way up here. And then I think I would run out. It just causes more complication with trying to figure out the height. How much adjustability there is up and down in that shelf. So anyways, it's working. Oops, sorry, I keep putting these pieces of boards that are down on the bottom, on the floor below me here. Sorry, down there. So anyway, so it's working. Not working quite as well as I would hope, but I think it's close enough to where I can tweak some things and make it at least as functional. And so some final touches, just to let you know what's going to be coming at the end is I've got some fabric that I bought that actually will cover the space where the old speaker cloth had been on this. The old one was all kind of ratty, so I bought some new fabric for that. So I'll be installing that. I'll be staining this shelf, of course, to try to get it as much as I can to match as closely as I can to the existing stain on here. So I'll probably use like a mahogany or maple type combination. And then I've got to I'll put same thing I've got going on here. I'll put one on the back and the one in the front to fill up the gap here. So that will do it pretty much for the main part of the shelf, and then of course stain everything to match. I've got to put some felt along here to cover up everything and to give it a nice soft surface for closing, and then a finish coat, top coat on the lid, and that will about do it. So anyway, stay tuned. I hope it won't take too long to get to that stage, but I will post things as soon as I get them ready and available. Thanks for watching.